Just takes a second. Welcome to another season of Up and In. As always, I am Black Elmore, and with me is my wonderful, amazing, knowledgeable co-host, Chris Hackney. Hackney, how has your off-season been? Are you excited for baseball to be back? Because I know I am.
Heck yeah. I mean, for me, it was a wonderful off-season because I celebrated a Super Bowl. But I'm ready for some baseball and maybe have another parade. I don't know.
Now you might be getting a little bit ahead of yourself now, okay? Thanks for rubbing in the Super Bowl. Us Niners fans were stuck sitting at home, and us Oregon Duck fans had to sit here and watch ourselves get our butts kicked by Ohio State. College Control, if you're watching, that's a shout out to you, and I hate making those shout outs, but I had to. Anyway, so it's a wonderful time of the season. It's a wonderful time of year. March 23rd, only days away from official opening day for the rest of baseball. Obviously, we had the Tokyo series last week where the Dodgers took 2 games from the Cubs. Heck, I got to get your opinion on this. What is your opinion on 2 teams having an opening day over a week ahead of everybody else? Like, does that kind of mess with that one team's kind of like momentum? Do you think it will hurt? I mean, like last year, we didn't see too much of an impact for the Dodgers, obviously going on to win the World Series, and the Padres having a fantastic season, but there's got to be something about starting off 0-2 before the season really even starts. That's got to mess with your psyche.
So I think it messes a little bit starting 0-2. I think the Padres and the Dodgers split last year, so it was almost like a wash coming back. We didn't play. But I'm going to be honest, I like it. We have to realize we're in an Ohtani world. And the fact that he gets to go back home and sell the tickets, they sent Chicago there. You had an opening day of Umaga versus Yamamoto. What?
Oh, it was a dream.
With Ohtani hitting, you had Seiyu Suzuki batting in the lineup. I mean, we have to, from what I read, I believe Fanatics over that 2-game series made $40 million in merchandise. So whether we like it, we don't like it, it's going nowhere. And personally, like if I guess we're spoiled in America because most of the games originate here. But think about how excited Americans get when Ronaldo or Messi comes to America to play a soccer match. So I'm not going to hold that back from the international crowd. And I'm glad they do it in the beginning. It would stink to try to send them over during the middle of the year or say they're not going to play. Those players are exempt from the All-Star game. We're going to send those teams there during that break. It's the only time logistically that you can make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, true, because especially with jet lag traveling that far, it's definitely going to mess with the players' ability. I mean, Mookie Betts, I don't think the travel. Did he actually travel with the team over to Japan? I actually didn't read that far into it, but I know that he's sick. Lost 15 pounds before the first game was scratched. I mean, it's just, I love the ability for us to go over there, but I do kind of agree with Petey here. I do believe these should be exhibition games. Why not have a whole spring training session in Japan? We're sending the whole Cactus League to Japan and have spring training games over there, for one spring. That I think would be more beneficial. I don't know about how I feel about, for example, as a Cubs fan, I'm not a Cubs fan. If I was a Cubs fan, starting off 0-2, having to kind of sit and stew a week and wait for your team's next chance to get a W. for me, it sucks. As a fan, of course, I think it sucks. But as always, I think they were smart in who they sent to Japan. I think that those are the two best teams. Shohei had an absolutely phenomenal first showing, 5 innings, only giving a 1 run. We got to see Roki Sasaki, even in a few innings, had some struggled with his spots a little bit, but it was nice to see him kind of get his first start in a comfortable atmosphere. I think the sky is the limits. Are there any? Speaking of the offseason, I think there's a huge $700 some odd million question in the room. And what do you feel about the Juan Soto signing with the New York Mets? Let's just jump right into it. Do you feel like this was $765 million reason why? We should jump into this question first. Do you feel like he's worth that much money? Do you feel like he's going to be good in 15 years? I mean, how do you feel about this move, especially being a guy who's a fan of an NL East team?
I mean, I don't think any player is worth ever plays out their contract for what they're worth. He's going to become the closest because he's the first, I believe, at 26 to sign that long. And normally that contract signed at 28 to 29. So you're projecting into the 40s, where his contract now, I believe he won't be 40. So some of the positives there. I don't think, I don't worry about year 12 and 13. I worry about what's he look like in year 8 through 10. And I think, I mean, if not the Mets, he was going to get paid. That's what the world we're in. And he's going to get paid. And the next one will be Skeens. And then Wyatt Langford. All these young kids are going to keep pushing the envelope up there. I think we'll see. I think he makes the Mets better. He sure as heck don't make them worse. He doesn't make them worse. And as a fan, as a Phillies fan, there was talks about the Phillies being, in the beginning up for one of the teams that could get him. I definitely wanted him in a Phillies uniform. So I think everybody wanted him to play for their team.
Do you think it really? Do you think as a fan you would really yes? I mean, the idea of having Juan Soto on your team is mind blowing. As a Giants fan, I would love to have him as well. But does his kind of wishy-washy attitude and how often he switches not only baseball teams, but his attitude towards cities where he stays in, do you think that is a smart signing? I mean, he spent last season in New York. They took him to the World Series where they went up against a buzzsaw Dodgers team. I mean, the Yankees are ready to retool with him in the lineup to kind of get back to that point. But instead, he goes to the National League where he's going to have to face the Dodgers even sooner in the playoffs. I don't know do you think this is just a financial move, or do you think this was a let's win a World Series move?
It's always a financial move, always when you're talking that much money. But if I'm to believe the reports, it sounds like the difference maker between the Yankees and the Mets was the perks, the way they're going to treat his family, the box. And I understand that's not what the Yankees do, but this is the baseball that we're in now. So if you tell me that if he'd be a Yankee, if you offered his wife and kids private security and their own personal box up there, that's your choice. I understand you say, well, they didn't do it for Derek Jeter. They didn't do it for A-Rod. We're talking about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you weren't giving out $760 million, $760 million contract. So I wish the Yankees would have offered him exactly what the Mets offered, except they were 20 million short, because then it'd be obvious you did it for the money. But look at the Mets roster and look at the Yankees roster. Which roster is better?
I mean, right now you definitely got to go with the Mets. If I completely agree with you. I mean, besides the Judge, you have a lot of question marks. Cody Bellinger, is he going to be able to return to Cody Bellinger of old? Is he going to be able to produce in New York? With obviously under a spotlight. The relationship between his wife and Juan Carlos Stanton, will that become an issue at some point? Just things off the field tend to play a little bigger pieces, especially in New York City and LA.
They want to start Paul Goldschmidt at first. So if you're Soto looking at these things, you're going with Volpe and Dominguez, a rookie. You got a lot of young pieces on that Yankees team. You have a second-year catcher. So If it was purely money, he would have signed for the Dodgers and back-ended that money and made it more unfair. So I do think he did pick a team he believes is going to win. And you have Alonso, Lindor, and Soto in a lineup. And if the kid that got hot, the third baseman in the playoffs last year, Virtus, if he hits the way he did in the playoffs, the Mets are right there with that. Their offense is right there with everybody else.
And I definitely can't argue with you on that one. Let's go ahead and stay on the East Coast with this other free agent move, though. Alex Bregman. I never thought I would see him out of a Houston Astros uniform. Now he's in the AL East with the Boston Red Sox. I love what the Red Sox did this offseason with their retooling. I think that there's someone that's going to compete in the AL East. But specifically Alex Bregman, were you surprised to see him sign with Boston?
Yes, I'll be honest, I didn't think he was leaving Houston. So I thought up until like maybe the last week or so of his free agency, I really thought he was coming to Philadelphia. It looked like the Phillies wanted to get rid of Bohm, and the only logical move after that was bringing in a veteran, which would have been Bregman. I'm intrigued. I'm also intrigued with the way that Devers is taking it, because it's weird to me that this is happening. Generally in baseball, you talk to your star, and there's no bigger star for the Boston Red Sox than Rafael Devers. He's the last guy in that room with a World Series ring that has that connection to winning. And it doesn't, from the sounds of spring training, it doesn't sound like it went, like, hey, he's playing third. It's just a weird situation there.
Yeah, I mean, especially when a guy comes in who's going to definitely help you win. He just came off of a Gold Glove, but you're not willing to give up your spot because, hey, you play third base, which I get that. But, like, he's the perfect stereotypical designated hitter right now. Like, why not try to slide into that DH role? Let Kyle Tucker play third base. Maybe you guys even split time. Keep you guys healthy. You're not feeling it one day. You have another comparable third baseman that's ready to take that spot while you DH that day, for example. But it looks like Kyle Tucker is going to be taking the reps at second base this season. I think that'll be an easy switch for him. Obviously, the throw is not going to be an issue with it being a shorter throw. But is there any other free agent moves that really caught you off guard this season that maybe you didn't see coming or that you think will make a huge impact in the upcoming season?
I'm going to go with one trade and one free agent move. The trade is the same team. In 2016, the Red Sox fleeced the White Sox for a young pitcher, Chris Sale. And Red Sox fans and White Sox fans know how that turned out. And this year, they went and took Garrett Crochet. I know from last year talk about his attitude on getting traded. That turned off some people towards if they were fans of his. But when he takes the mound, that man's a stud. And I think this year he's going to compete for the Cy Young in them. And my free agent it's a small move, but
Oh, heck, you there? All right, looks like we might have lost Hack there. That's okay. But no, what were we talking about here? We were talking about some free agent moves that really kind of caught you off guard. For me, it was definitely the Kyle Tucker move to go in the Chicago Cubs. I think that trade for Isaac Paredes to go to Houston, I think that's kind of a very interesting move on Houston's part, being that they're expecting the short porch. Oh, John, no, he did not. Absolutely. But he'll be back in just a second. Not a huge issue. While we're waiting for him, though, we're going to go ahead and jump out onto our opening day starters. We'll talk about that really quick when Hack gets back. We'll let him finish his thought. This is the opening day starters that's starting this Thursday. These are not time specific, so this is not the order of the games. A couple of the games I'm really excited to see this upcoming week is got to be. Oh, and Hack is officially gone. No worries, folks. But I am excited to see Paul Skeens and Sandy Alcantara face off against each other. That is one, like, you look at the matchup of Pittsburgh Miami, that does not scream like a matchup that you really want to turn the TV on to tune in for. But those two pitchers are two of the best young pitchers in the game, and to see them face off day one, I think that'll be an extremely low-scoring game. I think Paul Skeens is going to definitely come out, though, and show why he should be the Cy Young favorite this season. Going forward, I think he has over 8 strikeouts that game. I know right now I think his over-unders at 7.5 at minus 135. Definitely hammering the over on that. Absolutely, the King versus Sale matchup. I'm extremely excited for that as well. Where is that on the board here? Oh, yeah, and then we got Mackenzie Gore. This is one of the most underrated matches I think of, is Mackenzie Gore versus Zach Wheeler. Obviously, we know what kind of pitcher Zach Wheeler is. He's an absolute stud for the Phillies. But Mackenzie Gore is one of those very underrated pitchers who kind of comes out of nowhere. He hasn't had the greatest statistical seasons, but his ERA is always under 4.5. And last season, he had a great startup before getting injured. Like I said, the last part of the season, his shoulder went out, got hurt in the late months of July and August. But before he did get hurt, he had a 3.45 ERA. And I think that that's going to be a really good matchup if he can come and kind of bring in that same kind of form. But no, I think the game that I'm probably going to tune in for, that I'm really excited for another one, has got to be Nathan Eovaldi and Garrett Crochet. With a new look Boston lineup, you got Texas looking to make some noise coming back after a struggle last season, trying to make it back to the playoffs. I think that this is going to be a new revamped Texas team. And I'm excited to kind of see what kind of the two new lineups look at on the field. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game at the beginning of the season. Obviously, you got two hard-throwing pitchers. And early in the season, I think that pitchers have a tendency to not spot their pitches as well, giving up a little bit more offense. And I think that will be one of the higher-scoring games of the week. Go ahead in the chat here. Oh, Hack, welcome back. Go ahead and say in the chat here, who are you most excited to see on opening day? Hack, welcome back. We're just going ahead and we're talking about opening day starting pitchers, the matchups that we're most excited to see. Who on your list are you most excited to see face off on opening day?
This is an easy question. Sandy Alcantara versus Paul Skeens. That's a no-brainer. Yep. Paul Skeens pitching at home, and Sandy Alcantara, a lot of people are saying he might return to form this year. And I hope he does, for the Marlins' sake, for baseball's sake. And if he does return to form, he probably won't be a Marlin by the end of the year. So that'll be good for another team in baseball. But that's my opening day matchup that I think, pitching-wise, that's a really good matchup I'd like to see.
What do you think of so I was talking about the Mackenzie Gore, Zach Wheeler matchup. Do you think Zach Wheeler has another fantastic year for the Phillies, or do you think that this might be the year we start seeing his age a little bit?
I have him for at least 1-2 more years before we see the age regression. And the fact that he's pitching against the Nationals is going to help opening day-wise. I guess there'll be bigger tests when we get to the Atlantas and the Mets of the world to see if the fastball, but opening day, he should be fine. Probably my second one for opening day would be Texas-Boston. Just because I think we get to see Crochet. They both have legit offenses. I'm intrigued to see Wyatt Langford hold down the 4-hole for Texas this year. That should be, see if he makes a step. But that's a good pitching matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, as a Giants fan, I'm also excited to see Hunter Greene, Logan Webb. Hunter Greene is up-and-coming arm. Logan Webb, he started 4 straight season openers for the Giants. And so that's another matchup I'm excited to see as well. We're going to jump off of the starting pitchers for opening day, and we are going to go ahead and we're going to jump over to the power rankings that us here Up and In released on Wire to Wire Sports Network's Facebook page yesterday. You can find them. Please comment who you think maybe should be in this top 10, should not be in this top 10. I think it's pretty easy that the Dodgers has got to be that number one spot right now, as they have obviously the best lineup in the bigs. It's going to be interesting to see that Mookie Betts situation kind of play out as he gets healthy again. Also, having Mookie Betts at shortstop, is that a smart decision? I thought in the offseason they would have gone out and they would have, gotten another option at shortstop, as he was one of the worst defensive shortstops in the league last season. I would love to get him back to second base, get him back out to the outfield. Yes, exactly. Windows 98. He might even be running on 96 right now, but who knows? Obviously, Atlanta Braves returning a lot of bats from last season. Ronald Acuna Jr. returning this season. The Philadelphia Phillies, always a top-notch team. So, as I said, that move for Bryce Harper from the outfield to first base, I think, is an absolute genius move. It's going to extend his career, and it's also a move I feel I wish Mike Trout and the Angels would do. Mike Trout moving him from center field to right field. Will that really ultimately help him on his wear and tear? Maybe, maybe not. I feel like a move to first base with his athletic ability and how young he is, he'd be able to make that transition pretty well and be able to play a very, very good, tough, strong first base for the Angels. And obviously having him in the lineup is all that matters. So if that doesn't work out, get him in the DH spot. But I'm kind of getting a little bit off track here. There we go, Hack. Gene. I'll let him know to hit you up. 1 second here. All right, perfect. And then, of course, we got the Mets. Like, do I think that Soto move is going to be a huge needle mover for these guys? Not really. However, it obviously early in the season on paper is all we have to go off right now. And I think the Mets have one of the best lineups in the game. And the Baltimore Orioles, the loss of Corbin Burns, that's a huge loss in the offseason. But however, I think this pitching, this starting rotation, it definitely has what it takes to kind of stay competitive in the AL East, especially with the Yankees not having the Cole in the lineup. I think there's a lot of pitching matchups that favor the Orioles this season. The Padres believe that last season, if they'd gotten by the Dodgers in the NLDS, that they would have won the World Series. And I do not disagree with that statement. They were absolutely on fire last season, and I would be excited to see what would have happened had they gotten by the Dodgers. But obviously, we all know what happened. The Dodgers took care of business to get the Yankees. But the Padres are a team that people think are not going to be as competitive this season. I think Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, I think that they can put things together, and I think that that's going to be a very strong team out of the NL West. And the Brewers, now they're a team that they have picked to finish as low as fourth in the NL Central. However, I think the Milwaukee Brewers have retooled just fine. I think, excuse me, sorry, I lost my train of thought reading all the chat too. Okay, PD, first off, Cubs are top 10 because I do think they had a rough start to the season going 0-2 against the Dodgers. But I think that they have the pieces in the lineup and the pieces in the rotation that come when it's all said and done, they're going to be a wild card team, finish second behind the Brewers. Brewers are actually my lock right now. They are, minus 110 for 86.5 wins this season. I have the Brewers as my lock of the year season going over the 86.5. But please, people in the chat, tell me, who do you think should be in this top 10 that isn't? Because I have no problem getting constructive criticism. No, Houston. Yeah, he was Houston. I have a huge issue with Houston right now. They lost way too many pieces with Bregman, Tucker. You got Altuve playing out of position in left field, looking absolutely atrocious. I need them to show me something before I can put them in this top 10. And I know they're starting off the season against. Let me see this real quick. Houston is starting off against the Mets. I think that is a great tape measure to kind of see what kind of team they're going to be early on in the season for both of those teams, really. And you're exactly right. I picked the Brewers to win the NL Central this season. It just makes the most sense for me. Let me get Hack back on the stage. Hey, Hack, welcome back, sir.
Hey, yeah, this webcam is killing me tonight.
Don't even worry about it. I've been there so many times. It's not even funny. We're just going over the MLB power rankings that we released yesterday on Wire to Wire, talking about who should be in here that isn't and who's on this list that should not be. What's your opinion of this list, as you had no say in this list whatsoever?
I mean, I probably wouldn't have the Cubs ahead of the bottom, just outside the top 10 teams. I also wouldn't have those teams on. I'd probably have Arizona at 9. I think Arizona is better than you're giving them credit for. The addition of Corbin Burns and Josh Naylor, they solidified their pitching staff and their offense. Corbin Carroll's a year older. Cantel Marte is the best second baseman in baseball. They're going to be real good. It's only the division, really, because you're going to have to play the Dodgers and the Padres a lot. But I think they're right there with them. And I will ask you a question. You have the Red Sox ahead of the Orioles. Like, why? Explain.
I don't. I do not have that. I have the Orioles at 5. I got the Red Sox at 8.
I'm sorry. Wow,
no, you're good.
Okay.
I don't know if I had the Red Sox in front of the Orioles, I would expect you to get upset with me this season. I did have the Yankees in my top 10. Obviously, I think with the injuries and with the lineup question marks, obviously keeping them out of the top 10 was a smart move. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, they're not in the top 10. Without Garrett Cole, their pitching staff is smoking.
Carlos Rodon is their opening day starter.
If I tell you that Aaron Judge gets hurt and only plays 60 games this year, how many games do the Yankees win?
I mean, we're probably in talks with the bottom of the division. At that point.
Now, before we move on from this, I'm going to put a surprise team at number 10. And I'm drinking. I drank the Elmore juice, the eye black juice over the off season.
Oh no.
The Oakland/Sacramento A's will make the playoffs this year. And they will be number 10. And when it's all, we will see playoff baseball in a minor league stadium. Get ready for it.
Oh boy. Like as much as I would love to see that, because I feel like they made the offseason moves and they signed the pieces that they needed to, that I think this team is built and ready for the future. I just don't know if that is this season. Are you saying that they win the West? Or are you saying a wild card?
Wild card. They're going to wild card. The West will be won by a different team.
Okay, well, let's just get into a hack. We'll go ahead and leave the power rankings up here. But who do you have winning the AL West this season?
Every year it's the same team until they don't win it. It's the Houston Astros. Like,
but how can
I know
you be
people
so confident?
hate that because winners win. Last year, how far down were they? Think about how many shows I had to hear you gloating, telling me about the Astros, the Trashsters. They need to bang on trash cans to make the playoffs. And then the season ended, and the Astros won. So beat them. For that division, they're the champs. Until somebody beats them, I don't see it happening. The teams, Seattle still can't hit. The most disappointing team of the offseason, Seattle. You didn't add one bat to that pitching rotation. You have a legendary pitching rotation stat-wise. I don't know, I know the names aren't big names, but their numbers are crazy, and you have no offense. And Texas, the complete opposite. A great offensive team that is relying on Jacob deGrom to be their ace. Again. If those two teams could merge, they would beat the Astros. But instead, they're going to be fighting for third and fourth behind Houston and Oakland.
So you think Oakland finishes second in the West and takes a wild card spot? I'm not mad at that. I don't. I think you are cutting off Texas a little short of what they're going to bring to the table this season. I think, adding Jock Peterson, great move. I think Jake Berger at first base. You don't need a stud defensively over there, but a guy that can put up 30 home runs, 85 RBIs at the bottom of the lineup. I think that's an absolute great pickup. You got young pitchers like Kumar Rocker, who has had a rough preseason, rough spring training, by the way. I think his ERA last time I checked was 36. He had some rough outings. But I think that after spending some time in the minor leagues to start the season, kind of like Paul Skeens did last year, Kumar Rocker, rookie of the year, I think he was at plus 4,800 last time I checked for his odds. But once he comes up to the majors, I think that he's going to make that kind of impact to this Rangers team that ultimately pushes them to the AL West title. So I think the Rangers and their youngsters and they're in the experienced shortstop of Corey Seager and bringing in pieces like Jock Peterson and Jake Berger, I think that those little moves are going to be what's going to take this team to the next level. But that's why I think so in the West. I do love the A's pick. Another team I'm really looking out for this season is the Angels. Not because I think they did moves to make them better, but because obviously I want to see Mike Trout in the playoffs. Would it be crazy? Trout versus Shohei World Series just once before Trout, has to hang him up. Let's just do that. Let's just do that. Why not? Two LA teams. I'm okay. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Can I sidetrack this for 1 second? Since you
Always.
brought up the Angels.
I did.
Since you brought up the Angels.
I did.
So, did you see the reports that Ron Washington is banning the cell phones anywhere in the clubhouse?
Yes, it says something about him wanting to make the guys kind of bond a little more.
So these are the moves why I just don't believe the Angels. This is in a different way reminiscent to me of how Tony La Russa killed the White Sox. Your manager's too old trying to put in rules. I'm not arguing whether I like the rule or not. Like, personally, we all have normal jobs where you're not maybe allowed to be on your phone all day. But, like, the baseball players aren't normal jobs. So I just think when I heard that, I was like, this is why the Angels are where the Angels have been, because constantly they go left and not in a good way when you're supposed to go right.
Okay, I can definitely respect that. Sorry, as I'm caught my throat there. What were you saying, Hack?
Just a rule. How do you think that rule impact? Do you think it's no impact? You think because if I'm a free agent, I'm not going there. What do you mean I can't have my phone? Hold up. I'm 27 years old, and you're telling me I can't have my phone in the locker room when...
So here's the thing. I think you will weed out some of the younger players that care about that stuff. But I think what you will find is that the people that will sign are the ones who only care about winning. They're not going to care about if they can have their phone in the locker room. They're not going to care if they can text the girl, before the game. They're not going to care if they can make a TikTok, doing the gritty, before going and facing the Cubs. I think that you will. I think some players won't sign them because of that, maybe. But I think if anything, you get the winners to sign. The people who know what he's doing, the people who know that he's trying to set a culture in that locker room, because that's a team that has been struggling for years now. And they need to mix something up to kind of get them back on the right track. And maybe something like this is what it is. I mean, Mike Trout even said in the media that this is the closest a team has been this early in the season. He said that in the media. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe it's working. I don't know. But it'd be interesting to see. I think the Angels are a team to watch. I think, if Mike Trout, because the Mike Trout came out on fire last season, if you remember, he was only batting like 210, but he had like 8 home runs in like the 36 games, whatever that he played last season. And if he can come out, swinging that kind of hot bat, and the rest of the team kind of rally around him, especially the young guys, the Angels team could make some noise and, put their hat in the ring, when it comes to that AL West decision. But we're going to jump over across the way to the National League West. Who do you have winning the National League West?
I mean, it's hard to pick against the Dodgers.
You're right.
It's the Dodgers. I guess the hot take from that is I think three teams come out of come playoffs out of that division, which means for my division, the NL East, one of those 3 teams aren't making the playoffs. But I think Arizona makes the playoffs this year. You do? Yes.
Give me more about that. Why do you think that? So you think the Diamondbacks? Do you think it's the addition of Corbin Burns, or you think Corbin Carroll's going to kind of bounce back and have a great junior year? Because obviously his sophomore year had a little bit of a start off with a little bit of a slump. What do you think that's going to put them over the edge and back into the playoffs?
I think a mix of those. I think that the pitchers that they got last year. They acquired Jordan Montgomery and Eduardo Rodriguez. Rodriguez didn't get healthy till the end of last year. He was a coveted free agent coming in, and now you have a year of rehab under your belt. He's coming out healthy. Jordan Montgomery was one of the Boris 4 last year, and none of the Boris 4 that held out and didn't have spring training did good. So poorly, Arizona didn't want him, but he kicked in that clause, and now they're stuck with him, but he's had a full spring training. You add Corbin Burns, and 2 years ago, we were talking about Zach Gallen's elite. He's still there. You still have Brandon Pfaadt. You still have, I believe it's Kelly out there, Merrill Kelly. So their pitching staff is deep enough that they can afford an injury or two. They have AJ Puck and Justin I'm blanking on his last name, but
Oh,
they have
Justin.
200-mile-an-hour relievers in their bullpen ready to close games and set up. That's your 8th and 9th. Like, Arizona built the right way. I watched them 2 years ago stop the Phillies, built on a starting pitching going 5-6, and then reliever. Offensively, they took Josh Naylor from the Indians. He had a good year last year. That gives them pop in their 4-hole. And as bad as Corbin Carroll started last year, he ended the season with his numbers being okay, and Arizona almost snuck into the playoffs. And that was with a horrendous year out of Corbin Carroll. This year, I think he's better. I think all their young players, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is what he is, but he gets better, a year better at being what he is. And everybody matures. Jake McCarthy, another year. He's a solid. Even the year they went to the World Series, they don't shine you with like these splashy name players. They just play baseball the right way. And that winning, you can't discount that under their belt. While other teams, I'll give an example, even though I think they're going to be good. San Diego, they don't win. Every year we talk about how good they are, but every year they lose in the playoffs. Can't say that about Arizona. They showed they can win.
I know it's funny that you say that because I look at the Dodgers and I don't see a team that's going to run away with this division like a lot of people do. Maybe it's because I'm a Giants fan. Maybe it's because I'm a hater. It's definitely possible. But when I look at the Dodgers rotation, I see a lot of question marks. For example, I did a little write-up on the Dodgers a couple weeks ago on the Wire to Wire sports website. Go there and check it out if you haven't. But essentially, in the article, I wrote a huge thing about how Blake Snell is like a contract pitcher. Roki Sasaki is not durable. And I deleted a bunch of it because it was mostly just a rant of inside the mind of a crazy person. But this is the time where I'm going to bring it up. All right, Blake Snell has 2 Cy Young awards. Okay. In those 2 seasons that he won those Cy Young awards, he obviously had his best 2 seasons of his career. If you look at any other of his seasons, he's a sub 500 winning pitcher. He's not produced. His ERA is way above 4 or 5. This dude is a contract year pitcher. That once last season, he realized the Giants were not in playoff contention and he had an opt-out option. He immediately started pitching like an absolute stud. Why did he do that? So he could look better to the free agent market. Now he's got his fat contract. He's got the years with the Dodgers. And guess what? What does he have to play for now? Nothing. He thinks he's going to coast his way to a World Series, and we're going to see who the real Blake Snell is this season. And he's not a number 1, number 2, or number 3 pitcher for the Dodgers, and he shouldn't be for any team. And then we got Roki Sasaki. My issue with him is in his previous seasons, the most amount of innings he has pitched is like 127, I believe. He's going to be at that by the All-Star break. The Dodgers are already talking about reducing his innings early in the season to have him for later on in the season. To me, that spells out exhaustion come October. That screams out pitches left hanging, sinkers that don't sink quite as much, balls that are going to be 450 feet away from home plate if he throws those to the right to certain batters. So there are a lot of question marks in the rotation. Ohtani, when he comes back to pitching, obviously having his best season last year, being the first 50-50 player ever, guess what he also didn't do last season? Pitch. Does focusing on pitching change his mindset up enough for having to focus on 2 things where those numbers maybe hitting slips a little bit more than expected, or his pitching isn't top-notch like expected because he has to kind of get back into game shape? Will he have any sort of impact on the Dodgers rotation at all? There's just more questions with the Dodgers than I have answers, especially with Mookie Betts playing shortstop. I think that needs to be addressed at some point. Obviously, hopefully he gets healthy. Freddie Freeman, he's getting up there in age, and yes, he won the World Series MVP. But if you look statistically throughout the year, he had one of his worst seasons since 2020, since the shortened 2020 season. So there's a lot of question marks that I have with the Dodgers, and the team that I think they can kind of dethrone in this season, it is the Padres. They have the pieces, they have the drive, they have that hate for the Dodgers that a rivalry should have. I think Luis Arias being there being the leadoff spot for that full season, I think it's going to be huge. He's going to threaten for another batting title. Fernando Tatis Jr., he's going to be in MVP talks after the All-Star break. Jackson Merrill's second year, who knows what the limit is for him. So I think that the Padres are the team to beat, should be the team to be considered NL West favorites, because for me, the Dodgers have way too many question marks.
I hear those. and I agree. Like everything you said, you're right. The problem is, like you named 3 pitchers that question marks. They still have Glass now, Yamamoto, Kershaw, Tony Gosling, Dustin May. They're embarrassment of riches that they've got. That like now some of them aren't even in the majors because they just can't roster them all.
They
They
got no
only
room.
need these pitchers to make 15 start. Like it's they've perfected that 15, 20 start pitcher thing. And just, okay, we're going to make, I'll give you that. I don't know if they care about winning the division other than getting the bye. Like if they're in contention to be the 1 seed. But I don't know if they care about winning the division as much as we get to the playoffs and give you our best 3 pitchers at the moment. Also, last year, look, they got Jack Flaherty and brought in Tommy Edmonds. Those are like tiny moves, but the Dodgers make the moves that my favorite team doesn't make. They find those little pieces. Nobody knew Jack Flaherty, and I know he had a bad World Series, but he helped them get to the World Series. Like, it's those moves that they make. That why I say, like, I have the Dodgers winning it, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Padres knocked them off.
Well, it all depends on when they get hot. You know, if injuries do come to somebody in the West, who will it be? Did Arizona do enough? I think Corbin Burns was a nice move by the Diamondbacks that, you know, obviously made the NL West even scarier. Guys, if we could make an NL West All-Star team that could compete with any other division, easy. Anything else kind of about the NL West before we jump over to the NL Central? And, you know, obviously we try to keep this first episode to an hour. Normally we're going to go 90 minutes on Sundays, but this first episode we're just keeping it to an hour as we kind of preview everything. Anything else about the NL West you want to shout out before we do go to the Central?
I mean, I think the Giants, Colorado, you know, they're what they are, but I think the Giants have some players. It's going to be – I'd like to see what Lead comes back healthy this year. I think I read something that they were planning on batting him in the 3-hole. That's a decision. I'm going to be seeing how that is because he's not really known as a power hitter, but that'll be, if that's what you do, he'll have a chance to, you know, knock in runs. And that Ross Walker, I mean, people are really high on him out of the bullpen. So I think there's at least a couple of flashes of bright spots for the Giants. And you have Adams going there. I want to see if he can hit 30 home runs playing at San Francisco.
Oh yeah, you know, I honestly don't think that's going to happen. If I'm being honest, I can hope, I can wish. If anything, I'm hoping Matt Chapman does it. That's the guy that I want to see at 30 home runs in San Francisco is Matt Chapman. But I'll tell you what, the Buster Posey and the Giants front office are definitely doing what they need to. I'll tell you what though, if I heard a starting rotation of Verlander, Webb, and Robbie Ray 4 years ago, I would have been like through the roof excited, like we're winning the World Series. I just think that we're maybe a couple years too late on that rotation. I am hoping Verlander is able to obviously help, you know, mature those young guys and get them ready for the big leagues and, you know, the length of a season and what it takes to kind of get through those rough months. I think that's a great mentoring role for him. And heck, if he can win 10, 12 games this season, then that's a plus. But I'm trying not to talk too much on the Giants right now, just because they had such a good spring training. And this feels like a world like the World Series teams to me. The way that they kind of hang out around each other, the way the lineup goes through, the way that like they don't have really truly any huge bats on the lineup, but they're able to still manufacture runs. This team feels special, and I don't want to jinx it. So I'm gonna stop talking about it right now until we get the season underway. We're gonna jump over to the NL Central really quick, and obviously this year's favorite is the Cubs. Is the favorite to win the NL Central. Who do you think you have coming out of the Central this season?
I have Milwaukee coming out, led by the NL MVP, Jackson Chourio. I think this year he makes a huge step. I think this kid is nice. And this year he's going. Last year, people found out about him in the playoffs because it's Milwaukee. And when are the Brewers on national TV? When does Milwaukee doesn't get national stars. They had the Braun for a couple years. The steroids kind of dampened that, and Yelich got hurt. But this kid he's not he's really good. I think, well, I want to say Pittsburgh because I want Skeens to be there, but Pittsburgh just doesn't do enough their team wise. But Milwaukee, yeah, I think Chura is going to lead them this year to the NL Central title.
Hey, look, I'm not mad about it. Go ahead.
They won it last year. I mean, I think Tucker's going to have a good year in Chicago. It's just, I don't know if Kyle Tucker fixes what was wrong with Chicago last year. I think it's bigger than Kyle Tucker. And what other moves did the Cubs make?
Not moves that made him better. That's for sure. Losing Cody Bellinger wasn't a great move. I would have felt a lot better had they kept him, but they did bring in Justin Turner. So I do like that move for a bench guy to just kind of slip in the lineup. But I wish they would have kept Bellinger, and I would have felt a lot more confident about Chicago.
Now, my team to watch is Cincinnati in this one because Franconia going there with all them young players. Ellie, if he takes the step, stops striking out close to 200 times a year, makes contact and puts those wheels on base more. He could steal 100 bases if he's on base. It's just he's got to cut down, and you can't ask for a much more respected manager and a player's manager than Terry Franconia. He does not destroy teams like some maybe of the older.
Hey man, if Ellie can clean up the strikeouts and clean up the errors at shortstop, because he did lead the league last season in both most strikeouts at the plate and most errors in the field. If he can clean those two up, the sky's the limit for him. But here's my question for you about Ellie. Does Ellie De La Cruz follow in the footsteps of an O'Neill Cruz and a Fernando Tatis Jr. and shortstops that transition to the outfield?
Not for the Cincinnati Reds.
Not for the Reds. Okay, you think he stays at shortstop?
For the Reds.
For the Reds. Okay, I got you. Because when I look at moves like, Fernando Tatis Jr., great hitter. He was sus as hell at shortstop. Moved him to the outfield. He's been able to kind of solidify himself as a great outfielder, or a pretty decent outfielder. And obviously he's able to keep that bat in the lineup. He's costing the team less mistakes. Now this season, they're moving my main man, O'Neill Cruz. So I love this move. Moving O'Neill Cruz to center field. I think he's got a great speed. One of the faster guys in the league. They just don't really show it that much. And then he's got a cannon for an arm. So moving him to center field out in Pittsburgh, fantastic move. I just feel like Ellie fits that mold. He's got the size, the speed. You damn well know he's got the arm strength. I feel like that might be a move that might help the Cincinnati Reds win long term if they made that move.
So I think your examples were good examples, but I don't think they necessarily like Tatis is the closest one that applies to Ellie, and he didn't move till he went to San Diego and got on a team where, okay, we can win here. And if I do this, I'm making this team better.
And you don't think that they can win in Cincinnati?
I don't. Who's going to play short? Who's better than him?
They would have to get somebody for sure. They'd have to bring somebody.
I think O'Neill Cruz makes that move because around the league, you weren't going to play shortstop. But if you go play center field for the Pirates this year and you're good out there, oh, man, your trade stock goes. Look what the White Sox wanted for Robert. O'Neill Cruz, like younger, better, faster, stronger. Like so if you make that move, but for Ellie, I hope he does. But across the league, you just said about Mookie Betts, he makes errors. My shortstop, Trey Turner, makes errors. Shortstop used to be the position where you didn't hit, you field it. It's no longer that. Now you hit. And if you field, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I blame Alex Rodriguez for that. Turn the shortstop position into a hitter's position now. But no, I think that's one thing about his game that really I think is holding him and the team back. And whether they make that move, that's up to them. But I think that he needs to make that move to the outfield. And I think if they can get a solid shortstop, so fill that role. I think that might be the move that puts them over the limit. But again, that's my opinion. So you got the Brewers winning the Central. I also have the Brewers winning the Central. I'm excited to see what Rhys Hoskins can do in his second year in a Brewers uniform. He finished second in home runs last season and second in RBIs on Milwaukee. Obviously, Willy Adames no longer on the team, so he's going to be expected to step into that role of being the big producer. If he can just, like I said, if he can just get his season started right, he did not hit well. He was hitting under 200 in July and August. He needs to kind of stay consistent because he started off the season really on fire. And if Christian Yelich can stay healthy, I think the Brewers definitely have what it takes to win the Central. Anything else about the Central before? It feels weird to not really talk about Paul Skeens. Let's just talk about Paul Skeens really quick. Do you think Paul Skeens wins the Cy Young?
Yes. I mean, I think baseball wants him. I'm not a big narratives and think that stuff's rigged. But if he does what he does, if he does what he did last year for a whole year, you aren't gonna say it's rigged. That's Cy Young worthy. I think that this year is going to be different for him because as much attention was paid last year, it's going to be tenfold. The baseball card went for $1.1 million. That's not heard of in any sport. You're doing things that nobody does. Not to be like a pig or nothing, but you got a hot girl, like your girlfriend, you got the life, you're like what any baseball player wants to be right now. The only thing Paul Skeens doesn't have yet is the huge contract. And that's coming. That's coming as long as you stay healthy.
About the contract. If he was willing to, if he thought, what would it take for the Pittsburgh to sign you long term? He straight up said, I'm not even thinking about that yet. The question is should he want to stay in Pittsburgh?
It's not. He's not going to stay. It's just.
It is what it is.
Name me one player that stayed in Pittsburgh, and I'll name you the first one that did it.
Well, I mean, McCutchen keeps coming back. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but he left. He came back after he made his money.
Yeah, no, you're right. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now.
They're not going to pay. Listen, let's say that I don't exactly know the age, but he's in the majors now, young. Let's say he comes into free agency at the Juan Soto age, 26. Pitchers, you say 34. What's that 8 year? Is he going to get $1 billion? Because Juan Soto just got 760.
I don't think so.
I don't know if he's going to get that. I'm just saying, the next pitcher that breaks the bank, you look around baseball, you're going to just see Paul Skeens jerseys this year. The All-Star game, look at last year. Everybody wanted to see Skeens versus Judge.
Yeah.
It's good for baseball, though. I love it because it's putting eyes back on my favorite game. So, sweet.
All right, well, that's it for the Central today. We're going to go on to the NL East, AL Central, and then we'll wrap it up for the night and get y'all folks back to your evenings. But NL East, you're kind of the expert when it comes to the NL East. What are you seeing playing off? Obviously, injury prone. The Braves are coming back with a lot of their pieces returning. Philadelphia still looks like the team to beat. The Mets added some pieces. The Nationals are young with their rotation. It looks like it could be a great rotation starting pitching wise. And then you got the Miami. Who knows what they're ever doing? What's your opinion on the NL East?
I mean, I think it's going to be the Phillies. Although the postseason has been trending backwards, since the World Series, they've lost in every round. A round sooner, they've won more games every year. So, the regular season, they have been improving dramatically. I think, and this is not my Met hate, I think Atlanta's going to be 2. I think another not talked about move was Atlanta signing Jurickson Profar last year. I don't think he's going to have there for this year. I'm not saying he continues the all-star run he had last year, but if he can just keep them afloat till Acuna comes back, and Acuna comes back at, I won't even say 100. I'll say 80% of Ronald Acuna. Spencer Strider's pitching in spring training games, so he's ahead of schedule. I think Atlanta's a better team than the Mets. And I think since I think Atlanta's or Arizona's going to win games, New York, unfortunately, I think next year New York Mets are a factor. I think it's going to take a year for all these new pieces to slot in. Their pitching is still a little bit unhealthy. It's hard for me to pick a team to be in the playoffs that deciding that Clay Holmes is their opening day starter.
Okay.
You know, I'm not, and that's not an insult to Clay Holmes. I like him. I played fantasy baseball. I used him for years as a Yankees relief super stud and the relief pitcher position. But that's not opening day starter when Philly's putting Zach Wheeler on the mound and Atlanta could throw Spencer Strider. Somebody doesn't belong in that like threesome there.
So do you think that Philadelphia is a team to beat in the NL East?
Yes, until Atlanta shows they're healthy again. You can't. I'm not. Look, I'm not a rosy glasses Philadelphia Phillies fan. The window's closing fast. It's just in the regular season, the offensive approach seems to have been working more and more. And when you're playing bad pitchers, it's easier to do what the Phillies do. It's harder to do that constantly against top threes in the playoffs. But when you're seeing sometimes, the bad pitchers, that offense jumps on them.
Yeah, I do think that the Phillies are definitely still a team to beat in the East. Obviously, I would like to say Atlanta is going to be a solid team this season, and obviously we all know they are, especially with Acuna Jr. coming back and then Matt Olson. When I look at Matt Olson, for example, last year he really had to kind of carry the Braves on his shoulders, and I feel like he really kind of dipped under the pressure. He hit his lowest home run total in 3 seasons, actually 4 seasons. He had his lowest RBI output in 4 seasons. They had nobody in the lineup that was really able to protect him in the order where pitchers had to pitch to him.
Ozuna.
Yeah, but Ozuna, he had a fantastic year last year also. But Matt Olson, is he going to continue on his downward trajectory? Because if he does, that's going to open up a hole in the lineup.
I think Olson and Riley were the 2 biggest affected by Acuna, and Albies was hurt a lot. You took your 1 and 2 hitters away from your 3, 4, and 5 hole, because that's Riley, Olson, and I just said the DH. Ozuna. They're supposed to have Albies and Acuna in front of them, and also Michael Harris had a bad year last year.
Yeah.
A bad year. He had a down year, and that guy's important to their lineup. He's the 9 hole that turns over their lineup. Sean Murphy was hurt last year. The Braves had so many injuries last year. That's why, to me, I can look at your lineup and be like, wow, yeah, look at all these players. They should be really good. It's just you have to be healthy, and they need to return to form. That's the rub of them. And they lost Max Fried, so you got to replace that. Is Chris Sale going to be able to go back-to-back? That type of with that many innings on his arm from last year? Does Ronaldo Lopez? They have more questions than the Phillies have. At the end of the day, the Phillies have 5 starters that are at worst 3s on most teams. And they go a whole team. They have their ace in Zach Wheeler. Then we can argue over the rest of their staffs whether they're 2s or 3s. But we're not arguing whether Aaron Nola is a 4 or 5. We're not saying that about Christopher Sanchez. I don't know what Ronaldo Lopez is for the Braves.
Well, it definitely will be interesting to see, especially with the Mets, obviously the Juan Soto addition. I think that Philadelphia is the team to beat. I would like to see Bryce Harper have a Bryce Harper year where he's kind of in MVP conversations. Whenever he's having those type of seasons, obviously it's great for Philadelphia. It's great for baseball. He's one of the most entertaining players in the game. We're going to jump over real quick as we're getting short here on time. We'll jump over to, we already did the AL West. Talk about the AL Central here really quick. All right, we got Kansas City, obviously Bobby Witt Jr. That's my favorite for MVP this season. Do you have a favorite for MVP in the AL this year?
You just named them. I got
Bobby
my
Witt
2
Jr.
small market guys, KC and Milwaukee, holding MVPs out the Central.
Yeah, so you did say Jackson Churio for the Brewers, and then you are saying Bobby Witt Jr. for the Royals is going to win the AL MVP. I can't argue with you on Bobby Witt Jr. at all. Do you think though that his MVP season is going to be enough to get Kansas City at the top of the AL Central?
I don't think him alone. I think the key for Kansas City is going to be Ragans and Lugo. Can you repeat that? Because I think Cleveland's going to be what Cleveland always is, a tough team. And it's their, Minnesota, I think losing Royce Lewis, that hurt. That hurt their offense. But it's going to be Kansas City and Cleveland. You're going to need the pitching to pitch. You're going to need more so Lugo, because I think Ragans is that guy. Can Lugo at least hit 80% of what he did last year?
Do you think he'll be able to?
I do, mostly because you pitch in a division where you get a lot of favorable matchups.
Yeah, see, I can't get my mind off of the Cleveland Guardians kind of repeating again. I feel like until you can beat them, they've got to be the team to beat. Obviously, we got Tanner Bybee making opening day start. Logan Allen, Logan Allen slotted in the 5th starting spot. I think he's one of the most underrated pitchers in the game. Gavin Williams, great starting rotation. And obviously, any team with Steven Kwan at the top, who was threatening for a batting title last season, I think will have the same statistical type season this year as well. Jose Ramirez batting in the 2-hole, having a lot of, obviously Steven Kwan getting on base helped Jose Ramirez have a fantastic season last year. Very underrated. Wasn't really talked about in MVP conversations as much as he deserved to be. I just think the Guardians are the team to beat until they are not. But do you think? Say what you got to say, man.
I agree with that, and I think their move, 2 days ago, getting Nolan Jones from the Rockies, not that Nolan Jones is going to set the world on fire, but he's going to come in there and hit 15 home runs for that, 15 to 20, and bat in the 250 range, be a platoon outfielder. Those are the kind of moves that people are like, what happened to that guy? Oh, he's in Cleveland having a good year.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I really like. People say, Josh Naylor was a huge pickup for the Diamondbacks. But did you know that where the Guardians play, I'm blanking the stadium right now, so my bad. But it was one of the 5th most home run hitting, gave up the most home runs to left-handed hitters last season. And now he's going to Arizona to a stadium that gives up the 5th least amount of home runs to left-handed hitters. So I feel like they're going to be able to replace that Josh Naylor output. And I think that Austin Hedges is going to be a great fit as a backup catcher. And then Nolan Jones, I think he's going to also really thrive in that lineup, hitting in Cleveland as well. If they have a lot of power alleys, I think he's going to shine there. But do you think there was enough movement in Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago to kind of put them in this conversation at all during the season, or do we think that it's kind of just a two pony race at this point?
I mean, we didn't have Detroit in it last year, so I think as long as they have Skubal and Flaherty, they can win a series. When those 2 pitchers are pitching, they can win that series 2-3. It'll be interesting to see if they're young players like the Parker Meadows. Does Riley Green build on his all-star season of last year? They still have questions. Is Glaber, they signed Torres from the Yankees. Did you come over there and just be like Baez was? Or do you actually play? Minnesota, I mean, they're always there. They're going to be there for bits and parts of the year this year because they can pitch too. They have a really good pitching staff. It's just offensively, you're still putting out Carlos Correa. I challenge you to name a Minnesota hitter that you want, a fantasy baseball wise. I hate using fantasy baseball, but that gives you a good indication on, do people know your guys? Do people value your players like you do? And name me a Minnesota Twin you want from their offense.
I mean, yeah, they really, besides Carlos Correa, they really have not a lot of names. I mean, Ty France is an interesting one, but he's, again, batting at the bottom of the lineup. Yeah. But really, Minnesota's only real strength is a starting rotation because anytime you can get Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan in your 1-2 of your starting rotation, that's a pretty good rotation. I think I would sign up to have those 2 guys as my 1-2 as well. But I think offensively, there's just way too many holes.
And I think that's really with the bottom three teams, that's the issue. Is that when I put their lineups, and Chicago is like, I don't want to disrespect Detroit and Minnesota by lumping them in with Chicago because that's a separate conversation. But
Right.
Detroit and Minnesota, Kansas City has Witt and Cleveland has Ramirez. Who is your Witt and Ramirez? They don't have that guy that I believe is, one of the reasons I picked Kansas City over Cleveland is because if I say Witt's going to win the MVP, that means your guy's better now. He stepped, because it used to be Jose Ramirez winning the MVP, and that was the difference maker. Why Cleveland was the king of that division. I think there's a new king of the division. So that's why I got to go there. That one player is the reason why Kansas City wins the 2-1 games against this division.
Look, all I know is that we have to get Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. in the playoffs. I think really, like, for baseball's sake, we got to get those two young guns in the playoffs. And if we can get them at a championship series, give me some popcorn because I will watch that all day. But no, so that's the AL Central, folks. We got one more division to go before we get everybody out with their evenings, and that's the AL East. Last year, obviously, won by the Yankees. A lot of injuries and moving pieces have kind of changed up how this division looks. Hack, who is your front runner in the AL East before the season kicks off this Thursday?
I have Baltimore winning it and Boston coming out of the wild card.
Yankees in the conversation at all for you? Like, how long did it take you in your brain to be like, no, on the Yankees? Was it a debate?
The Yankees. If you want my truth, I had the Yankees actually winning the division. The Garrett Cole is too much. The fact that Garrett Cole's hurt and Max Fried is not like ready to be your opening day starter. You're handing the ball to Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, and they hurt Luis Gil. I can't. I'm not a big believer right now in Baltimore and their pitching staff. I have no clue what they were thinking in the offseason, but the Yankees have less. Baltimore, I can name their offense like 6 hitters deep that I'm like, all right, you guys are going to hit. Can't do that for the Yankees.
I actually don't have a problem so much with the Yankees, like, batting order. Obviously, Judge is going to do his thing. I think Cody Bellinger, I think he was a great pickup for the Yankees. Like I said, I would be putting Cubs as, NL front runners if Bellinger was on the Cubs this season. So I think that was a fantastic pickup. The way Jazz Chisholm kind of came over from Miami and kind of made an impact, I think having him at second base for a full season in the lineup, I think is going to do wonders for him as well. Then Anthony Volpe really started off the season as one of the highest batting averages in the league. We were talking about him, batting around 330, 335 at the beginning of last season. So I think lineup wise, there's a lot of nice pieces, but you're right. When it comes to like that pitching rotation, Carlos Rodon being your ace at the moment, Max Fried is a nice piece, but Marcus Stroman, he's kind of a head case. A lot of questions. Then obviously the loss of Juan Carlos Stanton, that's 30 plus home runs that is going to be you're going to have a hell of a time replacing. And then you got teams like the Red Sox who obviously absolutely despise your entire existence, who made their entire offseason about getting better and getting better than you. And I think that they were really able to do that. I mean, Jarren Duran is going to be your leadoff hitter. Rafael Devers, he's going to be have an absolute stud season, especially if he spends some of the time at DH and can focus on just hitting. He's going to have a career year. Trevor Story, what kind of shortstop season is he going to have? The Alex Bregman addition, is bringing him is the Green Monster going to be an issue for him, or is he going to be putting him over every other game? I like what other teams in the division did more than that. I like what the Yankees did. So I'm picking Boston though to win this division, and that's, like I said, Baltimore. I love Baltimore, but I think losing Corbin Burns definitely. I think they lost more than they gained. And I think with Boston, I think they did nothing but make their team better. Obviously, Garrett Crochet coming in, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler. I mean, that's a crazy 1-2-3 punch. Hack, I feel like you got something to say. What are you feeling about what I'm saying about the Red Sox?
I like it. I think the one thing is Bregman makes more sense at second. I like people that say, not just like you say, Devers doesn't. Their team works better with Devers at third and Bregman at second, Casas at first, with Matsui DHing. That's the way. If Devers goes to DH, Matsui can't play the outfield. And that their team's offense is better that way. I agree with you. To me, the difference maker, I don't really like the Walker Buehler. You have to be healthy all year. So I think like Baltimore and Boston's pitching starters are, like similar. Maybe Boston's a little better, 1-2. Maybe Baltimore's a little bit better, 4-5. But I have more faith in Felix Bautista closing out games for Baltimore than I do for Chapman for Boston. That to me is the stuff why when we get down to Baltimore winning by 2 games, the division, I think that's the 2 games, the bullpen, those type of things. But I do think those 2 teams are very similar to each other. And I think those 2 teams are very similar to each other.
Here's my question for you about the AL East before we kind of wrap it up for the night is the Toronto Blue Jays. I feel like they are constantly in people's minds as far as underperforming teams in Major League Baseball the last few seasons. Do you think they have any chance of competing in the AL East? I mean, they still got Vladdy Jr., they still got Bo Bichette. Obviously, George Springer is getting a bit up there in age, but do you think that Toronto fans have something to be hopeful for this season?
No.
Nope.
No.
That's it.
They're the opposite of how I feel about Houston, where I'm like, well, you got to beat them. Like, you got to win now. Because for too many years, they've been every smart analysis pick. They're going to win. And because of all the names you said, and before they had pitching staff, but like Gausman looked lost last year. I don't know what happened to him, but he looked lost last year. Alex Moneo went from, we're talking about you're going to be a Cy Young, to you're not a major league pitcher anymore. So like, you have Jose Barrios. He's a major league pitcher, but that's not good enough. I think he might be their 1 or 2, depending on what Gausman's doing, to face.
He's the number 1. He's the number 1 right now.
It's you got to do something. You got to just prove to the people. I hope that I don't hope I'm wrong because, we didn't pick our things, but it's first show. I don't want that. I have Boston. I want the Phillies to win the World Series. I have Boston winning the World Series this year.
Really?
I think that how you said it's a Giants here. I think the moves Boston made, the Crochet move, just like when they got Sale, nobody thought that was going to be the move that won them the World Series that year. And I don't think Boston's done. I think they'll be the team, one of the more active teams at the trade deadline.
Okay. I'm with it. And you know what, folks? We have this at Thursday. We take this off the screen. This Thursday, opening day of baseball. We're doing it a bit different this year. Obviously, this is our first episode of the season. So after we see the teams and how they play the first couple of days of the season next week, we'll double check our picks and make sure we want to keep those to see our teams kind of start off the season. But I'm excited for Thursday. I might be calling out sick of work that day just to watch some baseball. As a quick reminder of what we have on the slate. Boom. A lot of great pitching matchups. Starting at, what is it? 4:10 Eastern time, 1:10 West Coast time, and going all day, go all night. Baseball's back.
Yes, it is. We didn't mention it, but real quick, that San Diego, Atlanta, Michael King, Chris Sale. If you're a baseball fan, check that game out too, because that's going to be a great pitching with 2 real offenses.
Real offenses. Who was it that they ended up picking for the Dodgers to start against Skubal? Did you happen to know?
I would imagine it's going to be Yamamoto, but they might give. No, it should be Yamamoto.
It might be Snell.
You know what? It probably will be Snell.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find it. Yeah. Blake Snell is going to be the starter. So that'll be a nice matchup. Snell versus Skubal.
Yeah. look, a lot of people have Snell winning the. I mean, not me, but I read the articles. They have Snell winning the Cy Young. Like
he's not. No, he got his contract. He's got his guaranteed money. He doesn't have to pitch well anymore. Go look at his stats. Go look at his contract years, and they match up perfectly with his Cy Young years.
We're gonna get it out the gate because against Skubal, you're not gonna get many runs to play with.
Exactly. I mean, that's probably no matter who you have in your lineup, you're not scoring a lot of runs.
Yeah. No.
Especially, yeah, exactly. So I'm also excited for Logan Gilbert and Luis Severino, the A's in Seattle. That's a great matchup to start the season because the A's, I feel like, just like you said earlier, the A's have kind of put together a nice little team for the future, locked down some key pieces. And Seattle, I mean, Justin Turner said it best. He would have stayed in Seattle had they offered it to him if they had done anything to shore up their offense, and they did nothing. So that's why he left. Literally anything. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to get this off the screen here. That was the first episode of Up and In. We literally talked last night, and you're like, hey, let's do an episode tomorrow. I'm like, all right, cool. So here we are. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate y'all. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Other anything else, Hack, before we get out of here?
With better audio and visual. You know the word I'm saying.
That's true. You look a lot cleaner visuals this year. Now we just gotta get the internet fixed up, and then we're good to go.
That wacky internet.
All right. Well, on that note, we're out of here. Peace.